Well, what's up, runners? I'm going to share some 5 tips for beginner runners because nearly 80% of runners get injured every year. And as a physical therapist of almost 10 years now, I've seen this in my practice as a physical therapist. Runners coming in, they're getting hurt, they're getting frustrated. And what's the main culprit? A lot of run coaches, a lot of trainers will say it's just training errors and mistakes. And a lot of the research also points to that it's just mistakes made during their training, such as doing too much, right? Too much mileage, doing too much speed, like trying to do too much speed too soon, or just simply just getting started with running and just jumping into a training plan without the adequate prep. But don't worry, I'm here to help you avoid that. So I've worked with over hundreds and hundreds of runners over the years. Some common things I've seen. I'm going to share some 5 essential tips for those beginner runners so you can start running and stay injury free and make steady progress. So tip number 1, make sure you can start walking before you run. It may seem like common sense, but especially if you're an adult beginner, maybe you work a desk job, you sit 8-10 hours a day, make sure you can at least comfortably walk. You could walk 3 miles within an hour or so, which is like 20-minute per pace, which was like 3 miles per hour. So make sure you can walk 20-minute per mile pace, essentially walking an hour. And it should be comfortable, right? If you feel like you're winded, you start getting pain and aches, maybe your knee hurts or your ankle hurts, go get that checked out. You shouldn't start running if you're like already feeling so uncomfortable walking, right? You should be able to walk comfortably. And make sure that you do this for a couple weeks here. Now, if it's very easy, you could go from like 2 to 3 weeks, and then go into a run walk program. And then when you're doing a run walk program, start with small intervals, right? Start with a small run interval, maybe a 15-second run, and like a 30 or 45-second walk. And you repeat that for about 10 to 15 minutes. Do that 2 or 3 times a week. See how your body handles that, especially if you're overweight. So sometimes beginner adults, they may be a bit overweight. It's just our modern lifestyles. We spend a lot of hours sitting, and we may be carrying extra pounds. But unfortunately, that extra poundage, that extra weight, can put more stress on your joints. So I understand that, hey, maybe you're motivated to start running because you want to lose weight, but take it slow. Make sure you can walk first, and you should be comfortable, because you don't want to go on this new fitness journey and start getting joint pain and knee pain and stuff like that because you rush the process. Right. So, give yourself a strong foundation, and you'll thank yourself later. Tip number 2, strength training for runners. Stronger muscles means fewer injuries and faster recoveries. You can bounce back quicker from intense workouts. So many runners, including big and especially beginners, they tend to skip strength training. But it's one of the best ways to prevent injuries and enhance performance. And it doesn't have to be, a time-consuming process. I understand, hey, you may be working a 9-to-5 job, 40 hours a week, and you're like, all right, it's already hard enough for you to fit 2 or 3 run workouts a week. And you're like, how am I going to fit strength training in, right? So you don't have to fit in 2-hour bodybuilding style sessions of strength workouts 5 or 6 days a week. No, you can do a simple full body strength workout just 2 times a week of about 20 to 30 minutes, doing a single set to muscle fatigue of 8 to 12 repetitions per exercise. So simple routine, for example, leg press or squat, deadlift. You could do upper body, obviously, bench press, chest press, overhead press, core. Again, there's so many different exercises you could do, but particularly for runners, obviously you want to focus on the lower body musculature, again, the squats, so quads, hamstrings, glutes, calves, and lunges as well. And if you don't have access to a gym, buy like a dumbbell, right? You get a dumbbell, and they're relatively inexpensive. Or a kettlebell. I'm a big fan of kettlebells, right? Get a 10 or 15-pound kettlebell. As you get stronger, you get heavier weights, of course, and you could mix it up. And if you do have access to the gym, just go off to the gym and maybe do your strength and run workout together. So you may do the run portion first and then the strength, or vice versa, whatever your preference is. If you're not an elite athlete, it doesn't matter too much the order of the run or the strength workout. If you're pressed for time, just do them together, right? Maybe spend 20-30 minutes doing strength training and then 20 or 30 minutes doing the run portion. If you're training for certain races, maybe you're training for a marathon, yes, the run's going to take you longer to complete the run, and you may have to squeeze the long runs on the weekend. Totally fine. Again, you don't have to be a gym junkie. You don't have to spend 2-3 hours in the gym every time you go work out. Again, just 20 to 30 minutes of strength training, and you can do this at home as well. Will be just plenty to keep your body in shape, and there's lots of full body strength workouts for runners out there, and I have some free workouts as well. So tip number 3, addressing tight or stiff areas. So a lot of tight muscles oftentimes, the research shows that flexibility, right, doing stretch flexibility training doesn't prevent injuries, right, from a research standpoint. However, as a physical therapist, I've noticed that many injuries are still contributed by like tight surrounding structures, right? So whether it's a tight joint or a tight muscle, that this can limit your movement and then also cause pain, actually. Even though the research doesn't show that it prevents injury, oftentimes when you're already injured, you may have to do some range of motion exercises to restore the mobility in the joint to take out the pain, right? A lot of times I work with runners with painful knees. They oftentimes have stiffness around their quad or the hamstring, or stiffness in the knee joint itself, and they maybe have to do repeated knee extension to open it up. However, so what you could do, one, I understand what the research shows, but I still highly, strongly recommend doing daily mobility training or daily snacks of stretching. Maybe you work a desk job, you notice that you tend to have stiff, and scan your body, right? You're like, okay, what areas are stiff? Maybe you have a stiff low back, so you may stand up, stretch your low back out, or you notice that you have stiff hips, so stretch your hips out, just like 3 times a day, stretch them out. And if you're very pressed for time, at least twice a day, morning, evening. And you don't even have to take a long time, maybe just 3 to 5 minutes doing some stretches. And maybe you have a hip flexor stretch that you want to do because you notice that your hips are always tight or your calves are always tight. Another tip you could do is foam rolling a lacrosse ball. You get a lacrosse ball or a foam roller, roll out the soft tissue, help loosen the tension of the muscle. And you could combine the two. Maybe you spend like 2 minutes foam rolling or using a lacrosse ball. Maybe you have tight spots along your plantar fascia. Roll that out, and then maybe you'll stretch your plantar fascia, stretch your calf out. Again, you just have to scan your body because different people have different tightness. But in runners, common areas again are the actually thoracic spine, mid back. So you want to open that up. So some thoracic opening work. You could do foam roll on for the thoracic spine. Hip flexors are commonly tight on a lot of runners, and the ankles to be commonly tight. Again, they may vary on your individual anatomy and your lifestyle, like depending, if you always sit, do you always stand, like what you habitually do, and you may find some different imbalances that you need to address. And doing this does help just keep you limber. You may actually notice that you improve your running performance as well. You're able to go through your runs, and oftentimes when you start developing nagging aches and pains, it does help. Yes, stretching alone is not going to be the way to prevent injuries. You need to do strength training. A lot of the research shows that strength training is still key for injury prevention, but strength training plus mobility, that's a great pairing and something I do personally, and I recommend a lot of my runners do. Tip number 4, don't ignore the pain. So oftentimes a lot of runners will ignore pain. They think, I'm just going to push through it. I'm just going to push through the pain. All right, but pain is a signal, and that's something just to push through, right? If it's very mild, right, let's use a number scale, 0 to 10. If its pain is like 2 out of 10 or less, very mild pain, and it goes away fairly quickly, fine, you could run through it. But if the pain starts creeping up, right, you notice that the pain's worsening, getting, starts to climbing up 5, 7, 8, and severe pain, and it really changes the way you run, like your gait's coming off, you're like kind of limping on one side as you're walking or running. It's causing you to limp. Or you notice that now the knee's swelling up, And that's an issue, that's a big warning sign that, hey, you need to slow down. You may have to take a temporary break from running, go to a doctor, medical professional, get that checked out, see what's actually causing this to happen, especially if this is a nagging pain that keeps reoccurring. You've had it more for than a few weeks. Definitely get it checked out. Don't ignore it. General rule of thumb, if it lasts more than 2 weeks, you just go to your doctor, urgent care, just have them look at it and make sure, hey, because sometimes runners ignore things like shin splints, which ends up, they keep running on it for months, and then becomes a full-on stress fracture with the shin bone, the tibia bone actually breaks just because they're ignoring it. And they, I'm just going to keep running through the shin splint. Right? Don't do that. There's no reason to do that. I mean, unless you're like careers on the line, you're David Goggins and you have to get through Hell Week for the Navy SEALs. If you're not doing that, there's no reason to, push yourself through the point of actually breaking bones, right? It's not a life or death situation for you. You're just a recreational runner. You're a hobbyist. Maybe you just do it on the weekend. It's not life or death. Just go get it checked out. And then you could have that David Goggins mentality about your training and recovery, and then you could get back to your training and stay hard and do your workouts and whatnot. Tip number 5, simplify your running shoe choices. Oftentimes there's a lot of confusion. You look up stuff online, like what's the ideal shoes? Some shoes are making promises that they'll prevent injuries. Have a lot of the research has shown there's no shoe that is going to be guaranteed to prevent injuries. Sure, there's some shoes that may feel more comfortable and may be more beneficial for certain people, but the only way to really find that out for yourself is to go try it. So go to a running shoe store. even if you don't have a running shoe store, just go try out the running shoes at a shoe store and either walk in them. Ideally, if you could run in them, maybe ideally they let you run in them, go outside and bring them back. Great. And if it's comfortable. So the key thing when picking out a shoe, comfort. So you should feel comfortable. You should feel comfort. Your feet should feel comfortable in them. If you notice you're getting a bunch of blisters in the shoe that you've picked, it's time to get a different shoe. Like if your toenails are all getting black and jammed up, it might be that the shoes you're wearing, they're jamming up on your toenails, hence why you're getting blisters. Maybe you need a wider toe box. So shoes matter. And then if you're doing a distance running, like you're marathon running or even half marathon, you may want to get compression socks. Sometimes compression socks also helps with circulation and also helps with diminishing blisters. That happens with a lot of times when, because the friction of your foot going back and forth, the compression socks kind of help with that. And I actually like the compression toe socks, so each individual toe is kind of snug there. So, get your running shoes comfortably fitted. Don't fall for just what the running shoe store person says. Oh, this is the shoe of the year, right? Just try them out and see which one's comfortable. Because everyone's going to have different opinions on what's the best shoe. You're just going to have to find a bit of trial and error. But once you find the shoe, you'll stick with it, and then you could buy a couple pairs. Typically you switch out shoes depending on the manufacturer's wear pattern. Oftentimes about every 6 months. It depends how often you use the shoe, if you rotate the shoes. I recommend having two. There's a saying in the military, 1 is none, 2 is 1. Right? So that means just get 2 pairs of the same running shoes so you could alternate, and that's something I recommend a lot of runners do. But I understand if the budget's tight, you can only afford 1 pair of running shoes. So maybe don't buy this year's model, buy last year's model. Oftentimes last year's model is identical in every way and is just cheaper. So just buy a last year's model. You can save yourself some money, and you could do this buying 2 of the same model of last year's model and save yourself some money. Anyhow, the right pair of shoes can make every step feel effortless and can help you stay comfortable, of course. So, starting to run can feel overwhelming, but with the right tips and tools, you got this. And if you're ready to take the next step in your running journey, check out my free training for runners. I'm going to drop the link in the show notes in the comments. It's designed to help you keep moving, running fast, running safely, and confidently. All right, I'll catch you out there on the trails.